Okay, I think this is on. This is Force 13 Live. It's March the 13th. It's just past 6 p.m. UTC. We've never been late on a live stream for a very long time. But today we are, and we're still waiting for all of our graphics to load properly. It's been a ridiculous rush in the last 2 hours. We're covering Cyclone Idai, or whatever the thing is pronounced. It's looking really good in recent frames. We also have other systems active in the South Indian Ocean and in the Western Pacific. We'll have more on that shortly. In the meantime, let me introduce the team here, consisting of Isaac, Devon, I think Max is there with us now as well, and David.
Yes.
Good evening and afternoon to you all.
Hello.
Hello, everyone.
You're watching some of our graphics going by there. A very low-key start because we hadn't got anything ready. But we're going to get with it in a moment, and hopefully we'll be able to have more things to look at. And of course it is a very serious situation that we are looking at tonight. This storm has already, the precursor to the storm has already killed 66. 56 in Malawi and 10 in Mozambique, with 500 millimeters of rainfall or more possible over those areas again later on this week into the weekend. Then it's going to be pretty serious. And I also need to change the title of this stream.
Just looking at the Joint Typhoon Warning Center cone here. I haven't been able to get to the Mateo France cone. I'll get to that soon enough, but it seems like the storm is going to track perilously close to one of the biggest cities in that's Mozambique, right?
Yeah.
And one of the biggest cities in Mozambique, which is Beira.
Beira, it's the 4th largest city in Mozambique.
Yes. And it looks like that the storm is going to be taking a beeline directly for the city. Of course, the cyclone might move north or south, and Beira might be able to be spared the hurricane force wind conditions. A very severe tropical cyclone force wind conditions.
If it ends up going where the GWC expected, that could probably be the worst case scenario, because storm surge is going to go pretty much right into Beira.
Well, it could actually get a lot worse. Right now, the track is just slightly to the north of Beira, which means that they wouldn't be getting all of the storms. Wait a second. The storm spin the opposite way. So yes, that would be the yeah, they would be getting all the storm surge there. That's my bad. Whoops. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much a worst case scenario, because you can see, if you take a look at a map of the African coastline, right where Beira is that the coastline kind of comes together at an angle right there. And whenever you have that effect where the coastline comes together at an angle, you could get water tends to funnel into that corner, and it ends up actually amplifying the storm surge, and that could be something that we would see here if that track were to confirm.
Exactly. This is a major concern for that population center as it starts tracking over there shortly.
Yes.
Well, not shortly, but right now.
Hopefully everything's working now. We had about 10 minutes to set up the stream, and there's so many things that need to be set up. But here we are. We'll have some imagery up for you shortly. And the chance of tropical storm force winds now look like this: 75% at Quelimane in Mozambique, 65% in Beira, 40% further inland at Chimoio, and even the possibility further inland as far as Tete, and in southern Malawi in Blantyre, which has already been severely affected by what this storm started out as. It's not the only thing that we are tracking tonight as well. There are two other invests out there at the minute. 95, is it 95W in the Western Pacific and 99S in the South Indian Ocean. Let's see if we can now cross over to Isaac's screen. Fingers crossed. There it is. There's the latest picture of it, because we've not seen any of those yet. And would you guys like to spend a few minutes describing what its structure's looking like, why it is or isn't an annular storm, and whether it could become one?
I mean, it certainly has the. I would say, right now, it's kind of, in my opinion, it's borderline right now. Whether it's annular, it might later on it might fully become annular, and we might see these clouds over onto the northeastern side, and then a little bit on the south side of the CDO start to wane and weaken out, and just let this entire CDO be just free. But as of now, it's kind of borderline, in my opinion, whether or not it's annular. And certainly it looks to be intensifying as it's starting to make its approach towards Beira, Mozambique. I believe that's how you say it, Beira, Mozambique. As you can see, the JTWC cone to the right here has it going over. Surprisingly, they have it at 90 knots right now, but I don't believe they have updated it recently yet, to my knowledge at least. They have it maintaining its strength for about, looks like maybe 6 hours or so. And it slowly starts to gradually weaken as it makes landfall over just to the north of Beira, Mozambique. I don't know what the official think Mito France cone is currently, because I haven't seen it yet. But this is what DigiWC's forecasting for this current time frame. I don't really have anything else to say, so I'm going to open it up to, I guess, Max.
Looking at the, I just brought up the Mateo France cone, and the cone for Mateo France and JTWC are virtually identical.
Wow.
Yes. Is that with intensity as well?
Let me see. It's not. I'm gonna have to read through a bulletin that's
Yeah.
entirely in French, so you're gonna have to give me a moment.
All right. Who else was trying to speak there?
Nathan, I have it at 155 kilometres an hour, and I think gusting 215. On stand corrected kilometres an hour. The central pressure 972. And it's located 19.5 degrees south, 39 east.
Well, that's what they're saying, but it seems far too weak from these agencies. We're putting our satellite estimates at 130 miles an hour. Devon agrees with me, I think. 939 millibars is what we've gone with from the SATED estimates. 130 miles an hour, that is, what is it? It's in kilometers an hour, it must be near 200.
It's worth noting that the latest bulletin from Mateo France came out 6 hours ago.
Yes.
And what Mateo France is saying is maximum 10-minute sustained winds is at 85 knots. See if I can get that over real quick. So Mateo France is saying that the maximum 10-minute sustained winds is 155 kilometers per hour, pressure 962 millibars. And again, this was as of 6 hours ago when they had the Dvorak estimate at 5.5, which would be equivalent to a Category 3 in the United States with winds of 115 miles an hour.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think it's higher then?
As of right now, it's definitely strengthened in the past 6 hours, so absolutely it is higher than this, but I will wait to see what Mateo France says in their 18 set update.
Eye temperature is plus 11 Celsius at this time. The eye wall temperatures are much lower now, much higher now I should say, much less strong than they were earlier. But they are becoming a lot more uniform, and this is one of the characteristics that we see when a storm attempts to become annular.
Yes. Taking a look at the, again, this is the forecast from 6 hours ago, so the intensities are going to be under. But they're suggesting in 24 hours that the storm would get all the way up to 105 knots. Now, I don't know if that, I'm pretty sure that's at 10-minute sustained wind speeds in 24 hours. So Mateo France definitely was expecting significant intensification of the storm. 105 knots, by the way, you convert that over, that is 195 kilometers per hour. 10-minute sustained wind speed. So the 1 minute sustained wind speed would be even higher than that. You would expect 105 knots to be equivalent to a Category 4 in the U.S.
But given its huge eye, which is about 45 nautical miles now, is it likely to intensify very much at all now, or is it just going to be pretty steady?
It's really hard. It's really hard to tell because there's a lot of factors in play. Obviously, the sea surface temperatures are very warm underneath the storm now that's moved out of the upwelling area. So it's got the sea surface temperatures to do it. As it becomes annular, it's going to become very resistant to dry air entrainment. So we probably wouldn't have to worry about that too much. If the dry air does start to affect it, we could definitely see some weakening as it moves ashore. But if it's able to get its full annular characteristics on, we're probably going to see the storm be at roughly the same intensity that it is now for the next 24 hours, probably up to landfall.
And not to mention, this particular storm has been fluctuating quite a bit when it comes to intensity for pretty much its entire life.
Joy Typhoon warning. Go on, no.
Continue, David.
Joy Typhoon Warning Centre, just reading their latest advisory, it has actually improved considerably since I did last night's update. It's now got a ragged 20 nautical mile cloud-filled pinhole eye, and the intensity Devon based on VOAC estimates at T5, 90 knots, and the environment remains marginally favourable with 29 to 30 Celsius sea surface temperatures, good radial outflow, low vertical wind shear, 5 to 10 knots, being partially offset, and we mentioned the dry air. It's actually flowing in from continental Africa, and the cyclone will continue to track along the northern periphery of the subtropical ridge to the south. However, the picture changes at the 36-hour mark. The steering ridge will reorient and drive the cyclone more west-northwest. It's currently tracking, I think, Nathan, westerly, but it's only about 5 knots. And there was a question in the chat, will it possibly reach South Africa?
We will take questions, by the way. Please send more of them in, and an answer on that one. Might be a bit of a rain mate. It really depends on what happens after it moves inland, because I think models are now trending further west again and not for that re-emergence over the Mozambique Channel. Am I right in saying that?
They have, the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre has it at the 36-hour mark tracking west-northwest.
Inland?
Yes, so that's going to push it. I hope it's not going to try and do a recurve.
Well, we were thinking that might have been a possibility. But it's looking more remote now in those latest runs, as far as what I've seen so far.
And Nathan, can I just switch over to the latest on 95W?
Sure.
The Joint Typhoon Warning Centre has upgraded to medium percentages for the invest to develop further.
Well, that's interesting because we're looking at it right now and it doesn't look like much at all.
And closer to my location, a tropical cyclone warning is now in place on 99S.
There it is.
Bureau Meteorology Tropical Cyclone Warning Centre Perth is reporting that they should name the tropical low Cat 1. I think it's going to be Savannah sometime today.
Yes. And it looks like as well, because I would say it looks like a tropical depression looking at it.
And the Federal Police, Australia Federal Police, are reporting over on Cocos Island that the area or the region is under the local yellow warning. And they're looking at 50 to 150 millimetres of rain. And I'm waiting for the centre to update their information on the tropical low.
Let's give you a recap of where the storm is, Cyclone Idai, in relation to significant centres in Mozambique and perhaps beyond. So we're looking at it there, and you can see how close it is now to some of the land points. At the minute, it's a sparse area of coastline that's being impacted by the northwestern side of the storm, but if we were to draw a little measurement from its last position on this imagery to Beira, for instance, it's 249 miles. And a lot of smaller towns and villages there, 230 to 250 miles away. Chimoio, which is the 5th largest city in Mozambique, that's 341 miles west of the storm. Tete, further north, is 406, and Blantyre in southern Malawi is 353. Now, those last two locations are probably at a higher risk, given that the storm in the last few hours appears to be moving ever so slightly north of west, and we expect a further northwest turn.
Interesting.
Nathan, I have this question, and I think it actually came from a viewer to the update that I did. When's the last time that this region has seen a tropical cyclone and landfall?
Not that long, really. We've been talking about how deadly this storm is so far. We know of at least 66 killed so far, with the death toll continuing to rise. That would already make it the 8th deadliest storm in eastern Africa. Some way off the top at the minute, but we do expect those numbers to rise significantly, because that was all from the precursor of the storm, and also a report of 577 injured in Malawi. In relation to when the last time a storm like this impacted the area, well, in terms of actual impacts, we're probably talking about Chedza of 2015. Well, actually, no, Dineo, which was a bit further south, but still applicable, I think, as well, in 2017. And then if we're rivaling the intensity of this storm, we're going back to Funso in 2012, although it didn't make landfall. It was pretty close to land. And I think after that you'd have to go back a little bit further. Not sure if you'd have to go all the way back to Cyclone Leon Helene.
I know, speaking of that, do you think this storm could rival Leon Helene's intensity at landfall?
Yes. Would you agree with that?
Probably, considering what it's been doing. Also, I have wind shear graphic up. I'm not sure if you want to show it.
I also have wind shear up here.
And it's, according to this, it's been pretty consistent of 5 to 10 knots at
We'll get
maximum
that up in just a
all
minute,
around.
but I just want to point out for reference, we're actually putting this storm down, as we said, at 130 miles an hour. That is as strong as Leon Helene was as well. Let's see, where's this wind shear graphic? There it is. Let me get it on the screen here. So, start again with that, if you could.
As you can see, around where the storm is, wind shear is only about 5 to 10 knots at most, which is definitely favorable, I'd say.
And it's been like that the whole week, really. The only reason why this storm never reached Category 5 status, in my opinion, is because it stalled for too long off the western coast of Madagascar and lost its intensity. The eye wall collapsed, and it's been trying to build that new one, and finally it has. But because it's so large, so much larger than it was before, it's going to have a harder time intensifying. But it could still get to mid-range, maybe even high-range Category 4, you never know.
I have a closer shot of that as a wind shear if you want to take a deeper analysis of it, Max.
Okay.
That is another look
But-
there, and an animation of the infrared. Is it infrared or is it water vapor?
It's water vapor.
Water
black and
vapor
white.
imagery there.
But you can see how the eye has been clearing out recently in the past 2 frames here, and only what time it's been getting better and better. What time I've seen. I could change this over to let's see here, Dvorak here. You can see what it looks like on Dvorak. I'm not really keen on Dvorak, but you can see the black cloud top surrounding pretty much the entire width of the CDO, and some white cloud tops being over onto the eastern quadrant of the CDO. Devin, do you have any thoughts about this? If he's here.
Just
That's
reading,
David.
No, Devin.
Oh, sorry, people.
We'll get on to Devin in just a minute because I want to ask him another question anyway. So if he's there, just hold on for a minute. David, go ahead.
National Meteorological Institute warned that Wednesday morning will be the strongest cyclone to hit Mozambique in a decade. The cyclone is following an unusual path, crossing inland over TT. They're moving east to the Mozambique Channel, where it, as we know, picked up energy from the water, looped back towards the Zambezi Valley, where it could return to TT and could cause damage as far as Malawi. However, one of the major bridges, support columns over the Rovubu River has cut the link between Titi and Moatize, Moatize, and onto Malawi. And the government is reporting $15 million to repair the bridge. And flooding has also disrupted coal shipments from the Vale mine in Titi.
So the bridge
And
connecting Tete to Motizi, I think you were talking about there.
Yes.
That's just about 2 or 3 miles outside. So that is a significant connector. There's actually 2 bridges in that region. 3 actually, so I'm not sure which one they're actually referring to. Devon, are you here with us right now?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, Isaac, what was your question first? Have we got Isaac now? Okay, I'll start with mine. I just wanted to ask you about what your thoughts were on that HWRF forecast that you pulled just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I'm looking into it.
Now
That's about the best I can say. I just went to the Mozambique meteorological website, which, by the way, their text is in Comic Sans. Good job there. And if you think I'm kidding, you know, I could just flip on the screen right here. I mean, there you go. The text is in Comic Sans.
Oh dear.
So
What-
obviously it's obviously a very bare bones look to the website. No
What I
doubt
did
about
note
it.
though is the HWRF forecast you posted was from yesterday, and a lot of the models yesterday were talking about huge amounts of rainfall in the area. They seem to have backed off that quite a bit today, but yesterday we were looking at over 800 millimeters of rain, but in our HWRF forecast, that is how
it
many?
goes off. It goes
That is
way
unbelievable.
off the chart.
That's over
It goes way
2,000.
Yes. It goes
Nearly-
way off the charts.
Let's see here.
I just
Nearly
looked-
3,000.
Yeah, we were talking like 3,000 millimeters.
That's just.
I'm
that's
not saying
ridiculous.
we're probably not going to get 3,000 millimeters of rain out of this thing, but the rain seems to be very strong along an area along the Mozambique-Zimbabwe border. That's likely where the highest rainfall is going to be. I just took a look at the GFS to see if I could potentially see how much rainfall that area is going to get, and it seems reasonable to me that the rainfall is going to be in the range of 1,100 to 1,500 millimeters still. It's
And what
going
would
to
that
be...
translate to on the CDPS potential rating?
Yeah, I'm getting there.
Yeah.
I am getting all the factors together. I'm gonna go with the 1,100 millimeters of rain, which in our terms is 43.3 inches. The meteorological website for Mozambique suggests more than 50 millimeters of rain in 24 hours. So take that with what you will, but it's more than 150 millimeters of rain in 24 hours, and 150 millimeters of rain is not a lot when you're talking about tropical cyclones. I mean, that's 6 inches of rain in 24 hours when most tropical cyclones are easily able to put down an inch an hour.
But we are talking about
So-
places that have been dealing with flooding already from the precursor to this storm.
Yes. So it's just going to be more rain, and it's going to be a very messy site. And of course, my biggest concern right now is Beira, right on the coast of Mozambique. It's right on that corner. There's going to be some significant storm surge to be had there.
And Joy Typhoon Warning Centre is reporting 34-foot waves. And Nathan, what was the death toll?
So far, we know for sure that it's 66.
66 now.
ACHA, Southern and Eastern Africa, on their Twitter account is reporting nearly 843,000 people affected so far.
Hmm.
And also, it does seem to be right on the border between 28 and 29 degree areas of sea surface temperature.
Yeah, that's certainly never been an issue for this storm.
Yeah. Doesn't look like it's ever going to be until it gets over land.
Pretty much.
And
I just realized I muted my mic, but I'm back now.
Nathan, KBY.za.net have a breaking news item. Evacuation plans for certain areas in MOZ. I think that
Mozambique.
might be it wouldn't be Mozambique, would it?
Yeah, it would be.
Alright, anywhere except in Limpopo and in the Northern Cape.
That's South Africa.
Oh, well, okay. But anyways, the current suggestion out of Mozambique is take precautionary and safety measures in the view of the risk of the associated heavy rains, thunderstorms, and winds.
We've now highlighted some of the areas that we've been talking about parts of this live stream in relation to the storm. Beira, which is the one that we've been mentioning quite a bit there, is the closest to the storm right now, right on the edge of its influence, and it's going to get closer. That is a city with a population of just over 500,000, so that's a significant part of Mozambique there, which could be directly affected by this storm.
Nathan, in this article, back to the rainfall factor between 4 and 900 millimeters.
Was that expected rainfall you were talking about there?
Yes.
That is certainly not a surprising forecast at all. No.
900 millimeters was the top end.
Yes.
Okay. And what's the source on that?
Source is lowvita.co.za, so it looks like it's South Africa. I'll post the link, Devon.
Alrighty.
If you've got any questions for us whilst we're on the air, I'm not sure how long we're going to be here for. We had a bit of a stumbling start because we only had 10 minutes of preparation time, but we thought we'd bring it to air anyway. We will remain for a little while longer, who knows how long. Send in your questions. Just tag Force13 in the YouTube chat section. David, are we on Facebook yet?
Unfortunately, there is a major outage. I've checked, and apparently the outage started late Wednesday afternoon. So it is a widespread outage.
Okay,
It's been
we'll stay right
reported
here.
by Twitter followers, and unfortunately there's nothing happening on Facebook at this point in time.
Well, we've directed people on there to our YouTube stream in any case, and we're here. Okay, can Idai become a Category 5? It seemed to become a Category 4 super quick. Well, you know, I feel that the JTWC and co have been underestimating this storm almost the whole way through. So, I don't think it's fair to say that it's rapidly intensified just now. It has intensified a little, quite a bit. You know, it was, I think our last update had it at 110 miles an hour when it was going through that eye wall upheaval.
That's kilometers.
And now it's coming out again, and it's looking good. And I don't see any reason why it shouldn't be 130 miles per hour at the next relevant update.
Nathan, considering that it's now got the ragged eye feature,
It's not even that ragged, by the way.
so
really.
it is clearing out. What I was just going to highlight,
David,
is
I need to
that-
break in because the
Go on.
Meteo France have updated their position. We were expecting it at some point this hour. They're now saying a pressure of 945, which is very close to what we're having it down as, with 10-minute winds of 185 kilometers per hour, gusting to 260.
Wow. Where did you find that? Because
On meteofrance.re.
awesome. It hasn't updated for me.
Ah.
That makes me very angry.
Yeah.
185
Try Control F5.
Control
Nathan.
F5.
When can we expect the JTWC to update?
Oh boy.
In about 2 hours, I think.
Right.
And 185 kilometers an hour is roughly about 115 miles per hour.
Remember,
for
that's
anybody who
10-minute
needs a
winds.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, they're agreeing with us now.
Yes.
Yep. Nathan, what I was going to say, the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre did say yesterday that it was likely to undergo further intensification, and the latest information from Mateo France confirms our position, and I have managed to capture the space station flying over the system yesterday afternoon, and when I get time to clean it up a bit, and I'll put it on the main channel. But for my own position, it's looking a lot more healthier to what it did. What's today? Thursday,
Indisputably.
Tuesday local time, and 9:45 millibars. So
that's what
that
Mateo
would be,
France
what,
have just
Cat
gone
4?
with. High-end
the
category
local
3,
scale?
maybe low-end category 4, depends. Pressure isn't really a signal
Right.
necessarily. Especially when you've got a storm like this, which is, you know, a little bit different to what we usually get.
So, okay then.
I think we have some more comments here. How strong about do you think it will intensify? I'm thinking about 140 miles an hour, but what's yours? Well, you know, it's probably going to be something like that. Don't see any reason for it not to be. It's a matter of time. I mean, people have...
a Cat 5. It seemed to become a Cat 4 super quick.
Yeah, we had that, and we
We've
sort
already
of, you
discussed
know...
that already.
I don't think it will get to Category 5, but
And
stranger things have happened.
Nathan,
Somebody-
it's been it's been reported that landfall will most likely take place over the weekend,
No.
and most likely will be Cat 1 on landfall.
Where are you reading this?
It's a news source.
Oh dear.
I won't go there.
Is it out of date? It could be.
they must be using old JTWC information or something.
Yesterday.
Well, there you go.
Do we all think it's going to actually make landfall? Because there is still speculation from, you know, the previous models have been saying that, you know, maybe it won't even make landfall. It will get close enough to deliver substantial damage, by the way. But is it in concrete now that it's going to move inland?
I think that whether if it does move inland or not, any area that it's expected to currently make landfall in should expect significant winds, significant heavy rains. No doubt about it, whether if this thing makes landfall or not. So I don't even know if the question's worth debating.
And what about
It
storm
really
surge?
doesn't- the storm surge will be the exact same too, because anything that's going to be on the southwestern quadrant of this system is going to be receiving the maximum amount of surge from
Oh dear.
this.
And the geography isn't very helpful there either.
Now, I've already talked about the geography of the area. It's a very storm surge prone region.
Now, how far off the coast is the system?
We're talking about 200 and... Well, from Beira, I think, did we say 250 miles or so? From the closest point of land, which is to the northwest, we're now talking about, let's see, where's the closest point? About there, 140 miles. 145.
It's only moving 5 knots, and I'm thinking of the west-northwest curve. And the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre is saying the picture becomes more cloudier or after at the 36-hour mark.
I will say that the area that's currently expected to receive the maximum amount of rainfall is in the Chi-Mani-Mani National Park. So if you know what that area is, that's the area that's currently expected to receive the most rainfall. And I just plugged in all the variables. I'm still waiting for the 18Z information to come in for me so I can actually do this with the latest size data. But no, it's just not coming in for me.
Would you agree that it was stage 8 earlier?
Yes, and looking at the rainfall data, it could potentially be as high as 9, but at least with the size that Mateo Francis given me, which does inflate the hurricane force winds a little bit, along with the 900 millimeter rain prediction, which would translate to 35 inches. Looking at the JTWC, they have the hurricane force winds in a smaller radius, so I should probably average those two out. Which, yeah, with it all being said, and with the landfall, I would probably say of the strength it's going to be now, it might strengthen a little bit over water, but whatever it strengthens over water, it's likely going to weaken as it approaches land. So I'll say, just for now, a safe bet of 115 knots at landfall would put us in the stage 8 region, but any increase in the rainfall projection would bump it into a 9. Like the 1,100 millimeters of rain that I saw off the GFS, that bumps it right into 9.
Do we have an American version of Force 13 is a question there. We have Force 13 US. We do.
Yes, we do have.
Caribbean.
We have Force 13 US.
They've been very busy recently.
There's been a lot of severe weather going on, and they've been tracking it. Right now is pretty much the start of the severe weather season in the United States, and that's going to be going right on through mid-June, pretty much. March, and especially April and May is a very active period for tornadoes and severe weather in the Midwest of the United States, and that's at least from what I understand, that's what they primarily have been doing there, is tracking all the severe weather.
Yep. Back to this storm, and we've had a few questions about its direction and why it's moving so slowly. Would anyone like to describe what the steering situation is like with this storm and why it's been so erratic?
Oh, let me see what I can find.
Nathan, I'd just like to break in while Devon looks for the information. Breaking US news, aviation, due to that plane crash, all Boeing 737 MAX are to be grounded.
Wow.
The President of the United States has issued an executive order, and it's now being carried by aviation sources that
Good Lord.
all 737 MAXs will be grounded.
They're getting banned pretty much everywhere at the minute.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see what's happening over here in Australia.
Well, that's interesting news and a PR disaster for
Yes,
the manufacturers there. But here we are with the latest on Cyclone Idai, which is, according to our latest satellite estimates, 130 miles per hour. That was, I think you said, 195 kilometers per hour sustained winds. Obviously, gusts will be higher. If the storm is still this strong by the time it makes landfall in Mozambique, then it could be a very severe situation. It probably already will be, with huge amounts of rainfall expected to fall on areas that were already affected by the precursor to this storm, which has killed at least 66 so far.
And 195 kilometers an hour. Wow. and that in miles an hour is about 100, give or take about 120 miles an hour roughly. As you can see on my screen, here's the dry air with the shear, and in the past trek. It was stalling for like pretty much 3 days over Juan Dino Island. Now it's finally gone to move on now, and as you can see, its eye starting to pop out now after it had like about a day of trying to reorganize itself after I believe upwelling and dry air intrusion into the core of the system. But definitely Beira, I think that's how you say it, Beira, Mozambique needs to be on high alert for this particular system. Even if it does not make landfall, it still could be a potentially major storm surge threat, I would say, especially how it's going on to the north of it, which will push all the, I believe, since this is in the southern hemisphere, it'll push all the water and storm surge over towards the city if it stays on north, or even if it does make a direct landfall over the city. But definitely a disaster, possibly, for the city.
And we hear that there may be some people watching who are in the area as well. We certainly value your company with us tonight, and if you've got anything that you'd like to report on the ground, that makes, you know, it helps us to help everyone else to deliver the information and what we should be doing next. So if you do have any news for us on the ground there, then we'd be much appreciative of that. Let's get back to some more imagery here. Again, this is the last 4 hours or so here. A 5-hour loop that we're looking at, actually, showing how the storm has progressed in that time. It's certainly improved massively in those hours. And now going back to this infrared image showing the last 12 hours of the storm, and you can really see how the eye has improved in that time. An inner eye wall that dissolved, and now it's got quite a large eye, roughly 45 nautical miles across. And here's another question: when do we think it will make landfall? That is probably the best question possible, because we don't really know the answer to that. It's moving pretty slowly. We could, you know, I mean, it's not the most accurate way of doing it, but it's probably the best way that we've got at the minute. We can extrapolate its movement in the last 12 hours and see how fast it's been moving and where it's headed. 12 hours ago compared to now, it's moved 45 miles. So, you know, unless it accelerates, it's still 286 miles from Beira, which would imply 3 days if it didn't accelerate, but it should accelerate at least a little bit, and it will probably curve more towards the north, where it's only about 190 miles away.
The storm is expected to pick up some forward speed over the next day, and I know this is not an answer that a lot of people are going to like, but it's probably going to be, you know, another day before we have a concrete answer on exactly what this storm is going to be doing up to landfall.
Eye temperature now is 16 degrees.
I will say that, you know, landfall, or at least effects from this system, are going to start reaching land in short order, and any preparations that you need to make for this system need to really start to be rushed to completion. You're probably only going to have the next 24 hours or so to finish your preparations from the storm, finish your evacuation, finish up whatever you need to do before the tropical storm force winds start coming ashore. And at that point, that's not a point that you want to be out on the road. That's not a point where you want to be out exposed into the environment. That's a place that you need to be in some sort of shelter or in some place well away from this system.
I'm a bit confused now. We just took some measurements there showing it was 190 miles away, but that conflicts with what we just did half an hour ago saying it was 140 miles away. I do believe that the latter figure is the correct one.
I've also just noticed that Byra could be in even more danger from storm surge than we were initially saying, because it's on the northern edge of the mouth of a river delta, it seems. Which is
I've already discussed the geography there, and that always makes it more susceptible to storm surge.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
And Nathan,
Go ahead.
I've got more.
Oh, that's my telephone.
The Perth Tropical Cyclone Warning Centre has updated their information on the developing tropical low. It should become a Cat 1 cyclone around lunchtime today, and the latest track chart is indicating Category 2 on Saturday.
Interesting. And which direction is it going to go?
They have it 150 kilometres northeast of Cocos Island, 930 kilometres west of Christmas Island, moving south-southwest at 12 kilometres an hour.
We're just looking at this wide shot now. On the left-hand side, of course, is Cyclone Idai. You can actually see 99S on the right-hand side of that wide shot there. It's the area of disturbance to the southwest of Indonesia. Can't quite make out the Cocos Islands on this graphic. I don't think they're marked, but you can see the system developing there. Let's just see what else we've got here. There's another shot. Water vapor imagery there. This is actually quite out of date, a few hours ago, but it's the last one that we've got from this particular angle.
They're saying a period of gales with gusts to 100 kilometres an hour may occur over the Cocos Keeling Islands from Thursday morning until Thursday afternoon as the system moves southwest away from the Cocos Keeling Island. Monitor rough seas, the low moderate northerly swell.
All right, so I'm gonna try to answer the steering currents question here to the best that I can. So what I'm showing you here is this is a map of the upper level winds, way up in the atmosphere. Here's what the upper level winds are, and this is typically what is able to steer the system. And what you'll notice here is that there's basically a lack of steering currents going on at all here, and typically the storm is going to want to move in the opposite direction of one of these arrows. So the storm is basically, you can see here that there's basically no reds around the storm, so there's no steering currents whatsoever around this, which is why it's stalled. And then you'll see here that this trough here is starting to pick it up, and that's exactly what's going to push it westward into Africa, and of course it'll dissipate over land. But that's pretty much, that's the best.
Well, we think. So are we writing off that possibility that it could turn around again like the models were saying yesterday?
I'm not going to write off that possibility, but it seems like I don't really see any evidence of models wanting it to just stall offshore right now. I hope that answers that question.
I think so. I'm just trying to get to our next imagery now. Isaac, have you got anything else to show us there?
Yeah. Here's wide view here of, well, not wide view, but a kind of a close-up view of the cyclone here. And then if I zoom out a little bit here, you can see a little bit more. This is from UMETSAT, and you can see the Madagascar right here. You can see right about over here. I know it's covered by the latitude and longitude mark there, but you can see the city of Vieira right there, as you can see in this one, and the JTW cyclone, right in the line of fire for this particular cyclone. Over here we see, I think there's a mix of water vapor and IR here. You can see again the city's right about just in our area, still on the fire line for this potential cyclone. Whether or not it goes south or north is to be decided, but at this point, still a major threat to that city and Mozambique in general, as it heads inland over the next, I believe, 24, maybe 36 hours or so.
Alright, I think we've got some news here. The death toll from Cyclone Idai is now verified. Total has reached 71 at this moment. That is 16 away from Cyclone Lisette in 1997, which is the 7th deadliest storm in Eastern Africa. 100 from Cyclone Philau in 1988, 221 from Cyclone Chedza in 2015, and 271 from Cyclone Dineo 2 years ago. We certainly hope that our coverage will help people realize what a serious situation they're in for, but you know, there's only so much that we can do here from afar, and with flooding likely to be exacerbated even further by the storm's second arrival. It already arrived once as a precursor, and that is what has caused this death toll so far. There's even more on the way.
And obviously nobody in this region needs any more rain than they already gotten, but it seems like that's exactly what we're going to be seeing here, is just already saturated lands. It's just going to be exacerbated by extreme rainfall as the storm moves inland, and extreme rainfall is definitely the case. We're going to be seeing over, 700 millimeters, 800 millimeters, 900 millimeters, maybe even up to 1,000 millimeters of rain tops coming from this storm. And if you're in any region where you're expecting even just over 500 millimeters, it's going to be a very significant flooding concern. It's going to be a very significant mudslide concern. It's going to be an extremely dangerous system. We're not just talking, it's very rare when we're saying that a storm is a very intense tropical cyclone, and we're not even discussing the possibility of the winds at all being the most damaging factor. And it's quite surprising about that. But then when you realize that the storm's supposed to dump another 40 inches of rain on the place, the winds can definitely take a break, because those most extreme winds, they're really going to die on the coast. The storm's not going to be taking the extreme winds too far inland. So Beira and maybe another 40-50 miles inland from that they're the only places that are even going to be receiving hurricane force conditions likely. The storm's going to lose its wind very quickly as it moves overland.
Yeah, I'm looking at the areas that are involved in the potential landfall zone. It's very sparsely populated. You've got the city of Quelimane towards the north, which has a population of 350,000. Beira to the south with 530,000. And in the middle, just the small town of Chinde, which could be very near the epicenter of what might be this storm's landfall. Population roughly 15,000. That is about all. Those are the only 3 locations, in my view, that could get hurricane force conditions.
Well, then there you go. And obviously, Beira has to be very concerned about flooding from storm surge because they're going to be on the wrong side of the storm, in a very geographically vulnerable position on a river delta, right where a coastline makes a 90-degree angle, very low lying area. All of those factors coming in really suggests that the storm surge is going to be an extremely difficult factor there.
Yes, and further towards the north as well, it's also very low lying, so a lot of those towns that are further inland that will be protected from the hurricane force winds, or at least the strongest of them, will be in for huge amounts of rainfall. And even if it's not 900 millimeters of rainfall, it could still induce severe catastrophic flooding conditions.
Absolutely. That's why I said it. It doesn't even need to be in the 900. Just the 500 will be enough to produce a catastrophe in the area. No doubt about it. And coastal areas are probably going to see upwards of 500 millimeters of rain from this storm. It's not moving particularly fast, and it's going to curve back around once it's inland. So it might lose its wind speed very quickly, but the moisture isn't going to be going anywhere for at least 48 hours after landfall. The rain's just going to pile up.
And Nathan, local rescue groups, medical groups have crossed the border. I'll just try the Cozy Bay border, and the border has been closed. And if Ida does make landfall, over 600,000 people will be impacted.
Yes. I guess, there are much more populated places that this storm could have hit.
And we're glad that it missed.
Beira, I think, central Mozambique.
Yes, I mean, Beira is not going to get a great deal out of this, but it should avoid the hurricane conditions unless it does continue moving due west the whole time, which would be unlikely, but it is not impossible. And I think we've had a few people on our stream from there as well. Conditions in the city shouldn't be too bad at the moment. It's the edge of the storm is still probably about 30 or 40 miles away.
Yeah, it's definitely something not to take lightly. Here, I put up the Meteo France forecast track on my screen share if you want to pull it up, but you can see its past track and how it kind of just meandered around Juan de Novo Island for the past 3 days, and now it's just finally getting a move on. And go ahead.
I was just doing a quick measurement there as well. From north to south, the diameter of this storm is only 360 miles.
Wow. Yeah, it is a very small storm. Obviously, it has to be small in order to fit into that channel. But it is a small storm, and that's really the only thing that's preventing this storm from completely breaking my CDPS scale, to be quite honest, is that it is a small and compact storm, and that's the reason why it's been able to recover and regain the strength that it has. But that's really the only good thing about the storm, is that it's not a particularly large one.
Yeah,
let's see if we've got any new measurements. I think that is a new one.
I think that there have been storms in the Gulf of Carpentaria that have been larger than this one.
And talking about the Gulf of Carpentaria, over in the Indian Ocean region, Joint Typhoon Warning Center has now issued a tropical cyclone formation alert for 99S.
is that breaking?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, 99S with a cyclone formation alert.
Oh,
Not
yeah.
really a surprise. It's really looking fairly good on the satellite imagery. And that's what we're looking at
Graphic is-
there. Isaac?
I said the graphic hasn't updated yet, but I'll put it up there as soon as it gets on there. I have to sneeze, so I'm going to mute myself.
Coverage continues on Force 13 Live. This is Cyclone Idai that we are looking at right now and remains the biggest threat of the year so far, I think it's safe to say, around the world. Threatening this part of Africa that probably doesn't get as much press and coverage as it should, so we're certainly doing our part. And it is intensifying, we now believe, Category 4 status. The ATCF should have some information pretty soon, and believe it or not, they've actually stayed at 105 miles an hour. I can't believe that at all.
Really now?
There's no way.
Wow.
I cannot see how they could have stayed. No. That makes no sense. I mean, we have Mateo France here pretty much being in line with what we're saying right now. But that makes little to no sense.
Alright, sorry about that. I had to go away for just a minute. Just
Yep.
to get a better look at the latest Mateo France track there. And you can see again where it's expected to go in relation to the rest of its track history.
And Mateo France expecting landfall in a little bit more than 24 hours.
Which will make it subject to whether it speeds up or slows down Saturday.
And what I'm trying to figure out right now is, well, they don't have the technical bulletin for 18Z out yet, or maybe they do and I'm just not seeing it. But I'm waiting for that to see what the exact intensities of these parts of these dots are going to be. I see the simple bulletin that says 100 knots, 945 millibars, 100 knots, 10 minutes sustained, but I'm not seeing the exact intensities for the cone.
I missed the conversation that we just had here because I had to go away on 2 occasions just for that moment.
Does Mateo France have the technical bulletin out for 18Z yet?
I haven't got a clue.
Because I have their most recent information and I see the new track, but I'm trying to find out what the intensities are for that.
No,
track.
they don't have the technical bulletin. They are usually delayed. We'll wait and see on that.
That makes me a sad panda.
It does often come out quite late. Sometimes it can be delayed by hours, I'm afraid. So we'll just wait. But this is the latest imagery of Cyclone Idai right now. And there's the wide shot of how it looked earlier today. And now let's see if we can go back to that latest imagery. This imagery, by the way, updates every 15 minutes. It's probably the most up-to-date imagery we'll find. The last image of this loop was at 1 minute past 7 UTC, which is just 10 minutes ago. Current time in the area is 10:12.
Looking at recent IR, looks like from 1815 UTC IR, looks like the storm is either maintaining its intensity or slightly waning in strength in terms of cloud top wise. I've seen, at least, because this kind of light, I don't know if you're on my screen right now, but there's like this lighter green part of the CDO on the western part of the storm, and it used to be on the eastern part, but now it's kind of just waning now in the past few hours or two here. So it might be maintaining strength right now, or maybe slightly weakening, which will be good news for, of course, Mozambique and Vieira as it heads over there now.
Yes. Anyone else would like to raise anything at this point?
I think we've covered all the bases that we can. We're just waiting for the latest information to come out.
It's very annoying when we're having to wait for information. It does happen quite often in our line of work.
Yeah.
Just seeing if there's any new information about the latest on the ground. But it's quite clear that the worst of the conditions occurred in Malawi. 56 are dead in Malawi as a result of the precursor of this storm. 15 have also been killed in Mozambique so far, raising the total to 71. The 8th deadliest storm in Eastern Africa. That doesn't count Madagascar in that metric that we've used there, although I think it would be a pretty similar number regardless. According to the authorities in Malawi, 922,000 have been affected by the storm. Not quite sure what the term affected means in real terms. And 82,000 have been displaced. That's quite a lot of people that have been made homeless, at least temporarily, if not
already
for a long time. Yes, that was from the precursor to this storm, and here it is coming in for round 2.
Yeah.
Most of the worst places affected have been in southern Malawi. Obviously, that's not far from the center of the storm again. You know, the closest point of Malawi is 275 miles away from the storm's center at this time. So it's going to be another rain event for them as well as in central Mozambique. We're going to stay on the air a little longer, probably until the end of this hour, because information we've pretty much delivered to you, but we are appreciative that some people do come in and out, and we do sometimes get breaking news. But in this part of the world, unfortunately, news isn't quite as readily available as it is in other parts of the world. Even when you go by the satellite imagery, there's only one source that I know that has 15-minute imagery, and the rest of satellite places, well, there may be 2 sources actually, but you know, it's difficult to get 15-minute imagery when in the Atlantic you get 1-minute imagery, and in the West Pacific you get 2-minute imagery.
Yeah, the Mateo France satellites, they're behind a bit in the technology from Himawari 8 and the new GOES satellites.
Yeah, they're from early 2000s is what components they have in them. So there's kind of quite a number on the images that are able to be produced by that series of satellites. But they have stated, I think in the 2020s, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they're planning on unleashing another 3rd generation of satellites to observe the weather, and hopefully they'll be way more better than the ones that we're currently dealing with right now, because that'll be a nice feature to have.
Well, they'll be better than what we have right now. Will they be better than Himawari or GOES?
Probably not.
No.
We'll see.
A question.
Anything that's better than what we got.
A question in how far is the storm from Quelimane right now? It's 154 miles I know a lot of people work in kilometers, so how much is that in kilometers?
What are we talking about here?
154 miles?
154 miles.
It's about
okay.
250 kilometers, I think.
Yeah. 248.
Ah, close enough. Another question there
Nathan.
for Matthew Dahl. Will a cyclone move north after it hits the coast?
That's what it's expected to do.
Yeah.
David,
It's
go
going to
ahead.
move inland, and then it's going to move north.
A spokesman for the Mozambique cabinet has said that the government has decreed a wet alert due to the continuing rains approach of the tropical cyclone expected to reach the country between Thursday to Friday. She spoke to reporters late Tuesday after a cabinet meeting.
So that's yesterday.
The floods in Mozambique, one of Africa's poorest countries, have already destroyed 5,756 homes, affecting 15,467 households and 141,325 people. In neighbouring Malawi, floods have left over 230,000 people without shelter, affecting around 739,000 people, according to the United Nations. In Mozambique, 111 people have been injured, 18 hospitals destroyed, 938 classrooms destroyed, 9,763 students affected. More than 168,000 hectares of crops have been destroyed, the government spokeswoman added. Authorities have ordered compulsory evacuation of people living in flood-prone areas. 16 accommodation centres have been opened, and 16 million, and the government needs 1.1. I'll go for the dollars, 16 million to assist 80,000 families affected by the rain. And Nathan, going back in history, floods back in 2000
Yes.
claimed at least 800 lives.
Yes, that was probably one of the worst flooding incidents in this part of the world. In the 1999-2000 season, exacerbated by two severe tropical cyclones, Leon Eileen and Hudar.
And Nathan, the final paragraph of the news item, they expected to be a Cat 4 equivalent again prior to landfall.
Right, yeah, well, I'd agree with that, yes.
Yep.
And Zero, apology for the pronunciation, just commented on in the chat. I live 60 metres from the beach. Almost all main roads and streets in Beira between 50 to 200 metres from the beach, and the city has been said to be below sea level. That's a good posting, and storm surge is going to be critical. I don't know what the high tide is going to be for that region.
Well, we already discussed that it's in a very geographically prone region, very low-lying area. Basically, it's in the sweet spot for a storm surge to be very destructive, and it just so happens to be that this cyclone right here is taking direct aim at the city, and you know the whole situation is just not looking good at all.
Yes, we've had some very odd questions about whether we should go on television. This sort of is our television. We're showing this live stream to you. I mean, I don't know. In this day and age, the social media movement is pretty much as strong as the television movement is, and that's sort of where we're at. And that's why we're conveying our storm updates through social media.
It's a very powerful device, and it's going to eventually just take over TV one day. TV's just going to become irrelevant. You know, you got to think back when there was radio back in the 1920s and 30s. Nobody ever thought there could be anything that would ever make radio irrelevant. Then the television came along. And nobody ever thought that the television came along would make the television irrelevant. And now we've got all this social media, and we've got streaming services, and that's really making television networks irrelevant. So we're really engaged.
Hold up, someone's had an incident there.
My mic fell off my desk.
So in the middle of that great speech from Devon,
we're really in an age where the way that we consume media is drastically changing. And YouTube is part of that drastically changing platform where people can basically decide where they want to get their information from. And that puts, with that kind of power, puts great responsibility in the hands of us, where we try to be as accurate as possible and try to give you, we try to be as scientific as possible when we're doing this. We don't go out and make bold claims.
Well, we had one or two little accusations at the beginning of our stream about hype, given that we were saying it was Category 4 on the estimates, but we really think so, and we never really.
No, this isn't.
We didn't say that. For instance, we didn't say that Michael was a Category 5 operationally. We said it after the fact.
Correct, and that's because it was a borderline case, and NHC didn't have it operational. So there was no necessarily concrete evidence that suggested that Michael was going to be a 5 operationally. So there was no reason to call it. I was there on the stream along with Hank. We never called it a Cat 5 directly on the stream. We said that it's possible, but we ultimately came to the conclusion that the damage needed to be surveyed in order to be absolutely 100% sure.
And we're still not, by the way.
Exactly. So there is absolutely uncertainty to everything that we say, but we
that is the inexact science that we're working with.
Exactly. It's a science that it's all computers, it's all technology, and we have to be the interpreters of what the computers spit out, because the computers aren't perfect. The maths that we have behind this isn't perfect. In order for it to be perfect, we would not be able to get a model run out every 6 hours. You would be lucky to get just one 6-hour frame done in a day if we were to have a perfectly accurate weather model. It's just not possible.
Yeah, not to mention, we also have the luxury of being able to change our estimates really whenever we want, and not having to go through a ton of committees to do so.
We try our best to not do that, and we really don't try. We try our best to not do that, and we try our best to try to be as official as possible. And I think that we do a fantastic job on here, and that is the kind of responsibility that basically everyone has now on Facebook and YouTube and all the other social media sites. And some people just don't take it seriously, and then suddenly you have like BuzzFeed being the #1 news outlet in the world. Good God, that might happen one day. Just realize that. So
all right, well, there's Devon's thoughts. I'm not going to slander anyone on air, Devon.
I'm not slandering anybody here. But I'm just saying, like, that is a genuine thing that can happen now. They're in a position where that can happen, and we could eventually be in a position where that could happen. That's just the way that social media is nowadays, and it needs to. We try our best to take ourselves as seriously as possible.
Yeah.
Well-
One of our viewers is. Oh, go
Yep.
ahead, Nathan. One of our viewers is saying, what's the potential of Idai not making landfall?
I would say 20% now.
Yeah,
I'd say very low.
the computer models are pretty much headstrong on sending the storm inland and far enough inland to produce extreme rainfall on the Zimbabwe-Mozambique border. Specifically, the heaviest rainfall will be in the Chimanimani National Park.
I have some satellite imagery of the storm compared from earlier, and
Yes.
I could see that the cloud tops have gradually waned now in the past 3 hours. Each of these
Oh,
frames
yes.
is from an hour old. You can see this is from 1630, this one's from 1730, and this one's from 1830. And you can see that the cloud tops have gradually waned. Now, this may be temporary.
Northeastern
just,
side, I would say northwestern is holding its own though there. And
Yeah,
it could
it may
come
be
straight back.
It may be temporary or just fluctuations in intensity. I don't know. But there's something to note here. Hopefully, it's the start of a weakening trend here for the residents of Vieira. Hopefully, but who knows at this point. But just wanted to note that
It's just
going on
difficult.
settlements here.
It's difficult when we've only got 1 hour imagery of some of the infrared channels.
Oh, no, this is 15. I just made it to 1 hour, so it doesn't cover my entire screen.
And I don't think we should downgrade our intensity until we get maybe some more of this imagery. We need to really determine if this is just
15.
a temporary thing or
Yeah.
an actual trend that's starting to happen.
Yeah, this is 15. I just lowered it to 1 hour, so I didn't have to go through like 20 frames on my computer here. But just something of note. But yeah, this is the latest frame, and then over on the left here, you can see it used to be one frame every hour, but now it's 1 frame every 30 minutes. So the last 2 frames here. The last update was 17 UTC. This one was 1830 UTC, so this one's about a few hours old, an hour or 2 old. But you quite clearly see the eye popping out in later frames there.
Still quite baffled that the ATCF have kept it at 105 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
That's debatable. But here's the Mid France Kona. I don't know if this is an old Kona or not, but they're close to.
That's current.
That's current. Okay, they're good. Whoa, sorry if you heard that. Don't know what that was.
So
But,
they're saying 24 hours, and they're really calling for a landfall at Beira.
Yeah, and a lot of the models are basically taking this storm directly over Beira at this point.
JTWC have it just a little bit further north, their last update. The next one is coming up in maybe, if they're early, they'll have it out in an hour. If not, then maybe another hour. I don't think we'll be here by then.
Nope.
This is another look at some of the computer models from RAM. It's the panel comparison that I often show. The HWRF wants it to stay at pretty strong. Category 3 it says there, but that was initializing at Category 2, so... but I guess we're looking more towards prevailing conditions. Wind shear, according to GFS, is going to be very near nil for the next 2 days. Sea surface temperatures remaining very warm in the 28-degree range. Relative humidity isn't going to get any worse. It's going to get better. And the tracks are pretty tight-knit. So JTWC is actually a northern outlier to the tracks, so I'm actually quite surprised to see this. Models seem to heavily favour now a due west movement to continue then.
and that's unlikely to change because we're in that 24-hour time span now, where it's like it's 24 hours from landfall pretty much at this point. So the models really aren't going to change much. If so, it's maybe by 10, 15 miles, which when the center is going directly over, Beira, that 10, 15, 20 miles might mean a big difference, but...
Devon, got some breaking news for you. The technical bulletin has just been released for Meteo France.
Fantastic.
So,
let me get there.
I'm sure you'll find that useful. In their forecast, they actually expect a little bit more strengthening in the next 12 hours to 105 knots. Is that 10 minute?
Yes.
It's Mateo France, so it must be.
Yes. That is 10 minutes.
So they want 140 miles an hour at landfall.
But it weakens it by 10 knots at 24 hours, which is when the landfall is going to happen. So they're expecting it to weaken down. So it's expecting it to be a little bit weaker than it is now at land.
I see, yep. And then rapid weakening after that.
Absolutely. That's something I think we can all agree on, that as soon as this thing goes to shore, very rapid weakening will take place.
Has anything else caught your eye in that bulletin?
The sizes are a little bit smaller. Other than that, I think it's about time I start taking French lessons.
We'll let you go and calculate the latest CDPS then in that case.
Yeah, it's not going to change much. I will say that it's not going to change much.
All right.
It's just going to be a little bit weaker. The rainfall's obviously not going to change. And the size is exactly what I had. So it'll be a stage 8.
Can you remind people what to expect in a stage 8 cyclone?
Alright, so a stage 8 cyclone, it's really in the upper echelon of tropical cyclones. We're talking within the top 10% of all of the storms that have made landfall. So it's going to be in the top 10% of destruction potential. Basically, these storms are going to either be containing extreme winds, or definitely in this case, it's going to be containing extreme rainfall, along with some very destructive winds as it comes ashore. But again, that's really going to be confined to the local areas. The biggest concerns here are going to be the storm surge that will inundate Beira, which is a city that is located at or below sea level in places, and the very destructive rainfall that can exceed 1,000 millimeters as the storm moves inland. So those are the two biggest concerns that we're talking about here. The winds will still be damaging, but that's gonna be really confined to the coast.
We've had a question there. Does anyone have any thoughts about what its effects will be in South Africa?
Oh, this storm is a very small one, to say the least. South Africa should be relatively unaffected from this, I would think. It should stay well to the north of South Africa. I wouldn't see why it would be affected.
Yeah, maybe the very extreme northern part there might just get a bit of rain, but not much.
I would suggest that the rip currents could potentially be an issue on the northeastern coast of South Africa. But other than that, Swaziland, South Africa should be fine.
Looks like it. What about Zimbabwe?
Well, it's making land. Well, okay, so I've already said that the highest amount of rain is going to be located in the Chimanimani National Park, which is located on the Zimbabwe-Mozambique border. So I'm taking a look at what's on here as far as the towns that are in and around that area. You've got Junction Gate, Chipinge, Chimanimani itself, and Charleswood, all in all in Zimbabwe, will be experiencing, at least by a model predictions, extreme torrential rainfall in excess of at least 750 millimeters.
So there we are, looking at that imagery once again, and it's certainly moving due west at the moment.
And that's likely to continue.
We're going to stay with you for another 20 minutes here until the end of this hour, and then we're going to part ways. We will be continuing to produce updates. We'll probably be stepping up our update schedule, producing one at some point in the early hours local time, and then another one in the later hours of the morning. Probably getting to 4 updates per day now if we're not live tomorrow evening, which we probably will be. I'm not sure actually. I don't think I'm actually here tomorrow, unfortunately.
Okay.
But, you know, on the Force 13 YouTube channel and on our social media platforms, we'll have regular updates.
And developing news, Nathan, for Mozambique. Fast Jet Mozambique informs all customers that their flights for today and Friday have been cancelled.
So, to reiterate, at least 71 have been killed by the storm so far. That was mainly from its precursor system that affected Malawi and Mozambique last weekend. And there's obviously much worse to come, with over 500 millimeters of rainfall expected in Mozambique and possibly Zimbabwe over the next few days, taking it through to this weekend as well. And southern Malawi could also get more misery, where already 56 56 have been killed and 577 injured. Of course, communications and transportation have also been affected by the storm so far. It's only going to get worse as it approaches the coast. It's likely to strike now in 24 hours.
Sounds about right. One of our viewers, I can't for the life of me pronounce his name right, but so I'll just say what he's asking. I'm assuming he's referring to the South Indian naming list, but he says, how far in the list do you think we'll get by the end of the season?
Well, it's March now, and it usually gets much quieter, particularly here after March. So we might get to K.
There you go. I really don't really have any information, really, just going over the same things that...
The K name, by the way, is Kenneth. So that's obviously going to be a Category 4, because every Kenneth is. When you look back at these...
Wow, actually a somewhat normal name in the Southwest Indian Ocean.
Well, local names aren't abnormal. Not to local people. Obviously, if we have butchered a lot of pronunciations tonight, that is because we are not local to Southeastern Africa, and we put this disclaimer out whether we're talking about the South Pacific or whether we're talking about where else do we often do updates for? The Philippines or Asia? There's so many different names out there. Any more news on whether this storm is succeeding in its annular dream?
Well, it looks like it's still trying. The convection on my screen, the weaker convection on this particular band it takes out, but it looks like it's trying to do it. Earlier, it had a little bit more of that heavier convection around it, but still, I would say it's still kind of.
I would definitely have to say. I would have to say that the eye's ragged appearance is really starting to go away, and this thing's definitely taking on the characteristics of an annular cyclone at this point. This is just a very impressive sight to see. And again, it's a really small cyclone. You got to consider that the Mozambique Channel's not a very big place, and this storm isn't even taking up half the channel. So
keep in mind that this imagery takes out the weaker clouds like this one. This one has the weaker clouds around it. This one takes out the weaker clouds, and it's just able to see most of the heavier convection. So keep in mind there may be a little bit of those lighter clouds around the general vicinity of this cyclone still. But I see what you're saying. I'm definitely starting to get that look there.
Yeah, it definitely is starting to look more annular, although I'm not sure I'd call it a full-blown annular cyclone yet.
It gets a thumbs up from me, though. That is definitely an impressive looking storm, and man, I just hope that people are getting out of the way of this thing, because it's not good. This is just going to be more rain in an area that's already received a torrential amount of it, and I can just sit here and it's a hopeless feeling, really, that you just sit here and you look at one of these storms and you know that people are in danger, and you just hope that people are listening to you.
We have a new image of the storm now on the infrared channel. It's the last one we'll see during this live stream. The eye temperature is now up to 18 degrees Celsius.
Wasn't it at 16 earlier?
Yes.
I think. Wow,
16 an hour ago. It's now 18. Northeastern eye wall still looking a bit flaky. As a matter of fact, it looks like it's a somewhat messy eye wall there in the northeastern side. Difficult to tell on the infrared, but it would. Can you see this?
I can.
I could see that the. Go ahead.
It would appear as though there might be a break in the northeastern side of the eye wall there.
Yeah. I mean, according to what we've been seeing, it seems the eye has been intensifying steadily, but the eye wall seems to have been just struggling a bit more.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that went away. I was gonna update the loop, but it just messed up, so now I'm just showing a single image here. But yeah, the eye's getting more clear now. I just updated it, and like the entire thing went crazy, so I'm just on the single frame here, so it doesn't, mess up anymore. But on the other imagery from 1845, this one's from 18 UTC. This one's from about 45 minutes later. You could definitely see cloud top, well, especially on the northeast right there, a little bit of a break there, like you were noting earlier, Nathan. But it's kind of harder to see because the IR is kind of not as good as yours.
David, were you going to say something there?
No, I've got no news, but I'm waiting to see what the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre has to say in their next advisory.
And that will be coming up in about an hour we won't be here for that. But if there's any information that's useful, we'll put it on our social mediums. You can find Force 13, of course, on our YouTube channel. Of course, we'll have more video updates. It's what we do best. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're also on Facebook and Twitter. Search Force 13, all in text, at Force 13 on Twitter. You can also join our Discord server as well, where you can chat with fellow Storm Trackers. The link is in the description, if I'm not mistaken, of this video. That's actually an old link that's in the description right now. I'm going to refresh that in just a minute. You might want to hold off if you're interested in that whilst I update the links. It's a new link now.
And Nathan, a special welcome to those who have subscribed to our channel during this live event.
Yes, indeed. There's a lot of people wanting to find out the latest. So I've now fixed that link. But we've got another about 10 minutes here to run. If you got any questions, send them in thick and fast. Just tag Force 13 all in text with your comment, and it will light up for me, and we'll be able to take any questions. If you've got any, if you want any personalized forecasts for the area, if you're in Mozambique or any of the neighboring countries, we can facilitate that as well. But the main thing to take away from this really is that the models are now really aligning with each other in a consensus, taking the storm almost or possibly even directly over the city of Beira with a population of 530,000. That is a very severe impact if it was to do that in 24 hours time, and that is how much time we have until that happens. So we really are talking Thursday night for the worst of this storm to arrive and the landfall.
Yeah, if you haven't gone and done your preparations already, please do them now while you still got a chance to, before conditions start to rapidly deteriorate over the next few hours here. You have just a few more hours left. Make sure you have all your loose items that you think will go flying away, and a storm of this magnitude, put them inside, put them indoors. If you can, board your windows. Make sure you're able to stay in a safe area. Get into a safe shelter, probably a concrete shelter preferably. That's away from the storm surge. I know the city's, according to one of our viewers, is below sea level. So make sure you're in a safe area from the surge, in a sturdy building, or just go out and evacuate from this thing, because it's not a storm to particularly mess about with. As you can see on the infrared right here, it's truly an impressive system, and I don't think you want to be anywhere near this when it makes landfall.
I mean, it is the middle of the night there now, so I think all preparation should have been completed earlier today. Tomorrow morning is probably the very last chance for people in Beira to evacuate. But I think now would be a better time, to be honest.
Yeah, it's better to do it now than do it later. I would say, at least. But yeah, just make sure you have all your preparations done. Make sure you have food to last you for maybe at least a week. Water, all your essentials, everything you need, your medication, your important documents, all that. Make sure you have them with you if you evacuate, or if you stay in your house, which I hope you don't. But if you evacuate, make sure you take that with you as well, and your pets. But certainly, this is not something to mess about with. Just stay safe, listen to your local officials, and just prepare the best you can, and hopefully evacuate if you can as well too.
Yeah, and you know, it's going to be a serious surge situation as well. Did we get a number on how much surge we're expecting?
I've been looking and I have not found a number.
All right.
Well, let me see the DTWC. They say the wave heights, but they don't say the surge. They just say the wave height.
Which is a big difference.
Yeah, exactly. So 34 feet, so probably minus that by I don't know, maybe 10, 15 feet, something like that. But it's certainly gonna be something not to mess around with, especially if the city, like one of our viewers is saying, is under water level or at water level.
I've not found anything to substantiate that.
Yeah, that's just according to one of our viewers, or maybe above sea level. I don't know.
We got a question here. My geo teacher showed us this cyclone on your channel yesterday. He showed us a high pressure ridge that he suggested could block it. Has that happened at all, or has the high pressure moved?
Well, the high pressure that blocked it up to the north and east has already blocked it and has deflected the storm back to the south and west. And that's why the storm is moving due west right now rather than into Madagascar.
So a final point, and it's a question that's come in just now as well. Is it going to hit as a category 3 or 4? And I'm going to let you guys, I'm going to ask you the open question. How strong do you think it will be when it arrives tomorrow night?
I'll go with what the officials say, which is 95 knots, 10 minutes sustained winds, or what would be 110 knots, 1 minute sustained winds, or more importantly, in kilometers per hour, that would end up being
About
that would end up being
190.
203, 205 kilometers an hour.
That's pretty fast.
And Nathan, I've just posted the tide times for the region, and
Can you tell us?
unfortunately, it's going to be high. For 14.5 feet, 4.43 meters,
Can you tell us
12:41
at what
PM
time?
on Saturday.
What about Thursday?
Thursday is 8:57 AM, 16.5 feet or 5.02 meters.
And Friday?
Friday is 10:23 AM,
Okay.
14.7 or 4.49 meters.
Does that mean this storm will be striking at low tide if the forecast holds?
high tide?
Oh,
That's in the morning.
If it's
so.
Saturday morning.
Yeah,
yes.
but this storm's going to strike in the evening, David. But, you know, even if it's a low tide storm, there's going to be a huge surge.
I'll post a link.
Let's just get a quick glance at its movement. How far has it moved in the last, what is it now, 4 hours? 5 hours. The last 5 hours it has moved west 25 miles, so that's 5 miles per hour. 8 kilometers per hour movement towards the west, and if it was to continue moving due west at 8 kilometers per hour, it would arrive in Beira in a very long time from now. I can't work that one out. My maths brain has completely gone at the minute, I'm afraid.
Go ahead, David.
Sorry, low tide today will be 2:54.
Right.
So,
So that's
and
interesting.
it'll be 2.44 meters.
In any case, we expect, you know, if the storm's going to arrive at Beira in 24 hours, it will have to speed up by quite a bit. We'll obviously keep tabs on how much it will do that by, and whether there's any change to the timing of when we're to expect the worst conditions, when the storm makes landfall. We will be here live if we can be. I'm not sure on my personal schedule, I'm afraid, whether I will be here or not, but if any of the team can step in for me, that would be really appreciated tomorrow night as well. If not, we'll have regular updates across our social platforms. Any final comments from the team?
Just make sure you're attentive to your local officials. Make sure you've done your preparations. Your preparations are ready. Make sure
Getting 10 for that.
you've what? Oh, make sure you've done all your necessary stuff. Make sure you boarded up your windows. If you're gonna evacuate, please evacuate now. Don't wait later. Do it while you still can, before the surge starts to rise and the wind starts to increase. And if you're gonna hunker down, please make sure you're far enough above sea level to where the storm surge won't get to you. And also make sure, preferably, you're probably in a concrete building if there's any in your general vicinity. But other than that, just to stay safe, monitor the local officials. We'll be monitoring it closely here for the next few hours, and stay safe, everybody. That's all I really could say.
Yep, I was a bit confused at the start there because the music cut in horribly. Anyone else quickly?
And for me, David, as one of the two operators on the AU channel, we have the developing tropical low, which should be tropical cyclone Savannah in the South Indian Ocean. We also have the Bureau of Meteorology over here on the east coast of Australia, keeping an eye on 92P. It's supposed to track into the northern Coral Sea, and a severe weather system to develop today for coastal regions of New South Wales.
All right.
So there's quite a bit going on.
Thank you, and thank you the rest of the team for joining us tonight. Thank you all for watching. This 2-hour live stream that we've done tonight can be rewatched to capture the most important points of this storm on the Force 13 channel later on when it gets uploaded, which shouldn't take too long at all. In the meantime, we'll have more updates throughout tonight and tomorrow. Stay tuned on Force 13. We'll have more for you over the next few days. This is a dangerous storm. 71 killed already, I'm afraid, and unfortunately it looks like that number's going to rise. We've done our best to make sure that everyone watching has been briefed of the dangers of this storm, and it's only going to get worse, I'm afraid. Stay safe out there, and good night.